On the bench is a Ross Mark 1805 attaché tape recorder. This belongs to a friend of mine. He got it probably when he was pretty young. It's been his the whole time. I don't think it's ever been worked on. As near as I can tell, it was built around 1968. There hasn't been much information online that I've been able to find, no schematics or anything, just a catalog page from 1968. So we're going to check it out, see what does and doesn't work. I already had to do one repair on the AC adapter. This plug down in here was pulling off of the socket. So I fixed that already so I could power it up, and it does power up. We'll show that here in a moment. Okay, I have it powered up using the AC line cord. It does work off batteries too. So let me show you what happens here when we go into play. It's trying to spin. I'm guessing that the belts are probably too loose. That's just a guess. You can see it kind of starts to go. Electronically, I do hear hiss from the speakers, so I think the electronics are probably in okay shape, but clearly the mechanical needs some work. So I'm going to remove this top cover. To do that, there are 5 screws. There's one on each side up here, there's 2 back here, and then there's one underneath this cover here. So let's go ahead and do that now. I have removed the screws, the knobs, and the tape reels, so this should lift off now. One thing to note, both for my use later and if you are ever working on one of these 2 screws are different sizes. This one here is a little bit longer than the one on this side. And then this little metal screw is unique, and then these 2 at the front are the same. So that's all good. So this should lift off now, and it does. And if we reel this over, we can see what's going on here. So we do have a couple belts here. Again, it does look all original. This will certainly need some lubrication, no doubt about that. And we'll clean this up. But yeah, I'm guessing these belts, these are pretty loose. So if I turn this on, we can hear sound. That's encouraging. Okay. Yeah, so I'll probably need to get the belts. I'm going to need to get this chassis out and see what's underneath there. This is the capstan. And I assume, let's see if that's spinning. That is not spinning either. So we may have actually something underneath there that needs a little bit of work on. So let me figure out how this chassis comes out, and then we will come back and I'll explain that to you. So I noticed that they don't have these speaker wires on any kind of removable lug there. So I'm going to desolder those and put some lug strips on there so that I can pull those on and off a little bit easier. And let's see, so then we're going to need to get the chassis out of here. We'll figure out how to do that. I would also like to remove this lid so that I'm just dealing with the chassis in the bottom part, and I think that's just held on by these screws on the back hinge. Well, ignore what I said about removing those screws. It turns out, quite simply, you can just slide this back off of the case. It just slides right off. Yeah, it just slides off. Got a good friction fit to it, but it just slides right off the hinges. So no need to remove those screws, because number 1, they're a pain to remove, and number 2, they're a pain to put back. But much easier way to remove the back. So we have that off now. We can start working on trying to figure out how this chassis comes out. So to remove the main chassis here, as I study this, there are several screws and a couple pieces that need to come out. The main chassis is held down with 4 screws in the corners. there, there, and one underneath this battery tray. So the battery tray has to come out. That's held on with these 3 screws. It's a little tricky to slide it out. You kind of have to pull it up and tilt it out of there. And then you also need to loosen the screws on this AC cord compartment, and then the whole thing will lift out. So let me go ahead and loosen those screws, and we'll be back. And there's also 2 screws right here that need to be removed that lock down the pots and the jacks there. I also went ahead and removed the 2 screws that hold the AC socket in place so I can get this box totally out of the way. And I'm organizing all the screws in separate little bags so I can keep track of them. Plus I have the video to refer back to. So in theory now, all of the screws that are holding in the chassis here have been removed. Now let's see if we can get this out of here. I think, oh, there we go. Just slide it a little bit to the left, and we seem to be free. Oh, we got some foam pads under here. They are going to need to be replaced. It looks like they were on the bottom of these plates here. So we'll leave that in there for now. We've got some kind of sticker here. Oh, that's just some tape. They taped over some parts here. Okay, here's the drive belt. He's pretty wobbly. That's going to have to be replaced. And what else? Well, here's the electronics. We'll take a look at the other side of that and see if things like capacitors need to be replaced. Here are the jacks. We'll probably clean those with some deoxit. Here's the controls for tone and volume. We'll give those a squirt of cleaner. And again, some of the mechanism's going to need to be re-greased. So let me study now how to get these belts off so that I can measure them and order replacements. Removing the drive belt here looks pretty straightforward. I think we just remove these 2 screws here, and then this plate should lift up, and then I'll be able to slide the belt off because there's nothing on the top over there that's holding it in. Yeah, taking that bracket off, I can get this belt out. And note, if you remove this bracket, there's a very small lock washer on the end of these screws, and the screws are different. I figured out how to get on this side of the belts, these top belts. You have to remove the 3 screws that hold this plate down, and it is secured down through the flywheel that's underneath. So this whole piece comes away, and then we can get at the top side of these belts. I'm very impressed by the build quality of this thing. Okay, well that was still kind of tricky to get out. I did wind up bending this little clip here so I could get this. This is the brake string. This is basically what keeps some tension on these reels when the unit is in stop. But there wasn't quite enough slack to get this pulley, this reel table, all the way up. But I was able to get enough slack to wind the belt up underneath and come up this way. So it worked. I got it out. Hopefully I'll be able to get the new one in after I get some new ones. And I have to do the same thing on the other side. Well, to make this easier, I did finally carefully remove this clip that holds this brake string around the reels. So now I can lift these up and get the belts out from underneath much easier. I would probably have had to do that when I got the new belts anyway, so that I think is the way to do this. Replacement belts are on order, and hopefully I got the sizes right. I did find a vendor that actually has a listing for a kit of the 3 belts, and I'll put a link to that into the description. So this is the left reel belt. I ordered a 9.4 inch by 0.1 inch. These are all round belts. The right reel belt is a 9 inch by 0.1 inch. And then the main drive belt is skinnier. I ordered a 10.9 inch by 0.07 inches. So hopefully those will come soon and we'll get the belts on there. Next, I want to take a look at the electronics board. So to remove that, it looks like there are 5 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we'll do that next. Well, it would be pretty hard to get this board totally clear of the chassis. There's a lot of different wiring harnesses running to this thing, but visually, looking down in there, I don't see any bulging capacitors. I don't see any leaking capacitors. I know when I turned it on, the audio amplifier was working. So until we can run a tape through it and verify that the rest of the electronics are working, I am not going to mess with this at the moment. While I have the belts off and out of the way, this is probably a good time to clean up this dried up lubricant, and we will use a little bit of new lithium grease in the appropriate locations. To remove and clean up this old dried up grease, and it is pretty dried up and crusty, we'll use some isopropyl alcohol and some white lithium grease. There are a few touch points where I'll also use some light oil. I have lubricated all of the mechanical connection points, also cleaned the controls. It is pretty much all done for what I can do now, pending delivery of the belts. And so we'll be back once we get the belts and start putting things back together and giving it a good test. Well, that didn't take too long. The replacement belts arrived in 4 days. So let's put these in and see if they work. I did order belts also from another vendor, a couple different similar sizes, just in case. But let's hope that these work. First, we'll replace the main drive belt. That's this skinnier red one, and that goes from this wheel here over to the motor shaft, which is right under there. And to access that, we just have to remove these 2 screws and lift this bracket up and off. I want to remove this dried up grease that's holding this pin here, and we'll relubricate that. The main drive belt has been replaced. Now let's flip it over and we'll do the reel belts. The left reel belt should be the 9.4 inch belt, and the right reel belt is the 9 inch belt. The kit included these belts were the same diameter, so we'll see if they work. I will need to remove the head table here. There's 3 screws that hold that in place, and then I can access the pulleys that are underneath there. The left and right reel belts have been replaced. Now I need to reattach the brake string, and I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant on the capstan shaft here and remount the head block. The belts have been installed. I have temporarily hooked up the battery pack here also so we can test it. But make note, one thing I noticed is this spring right here. I had it going from here to that hole there, and that's not enough tension to keep this in the right spot. So it actually goes across these 2 lugs. Let's power it up and see what it does. So this is play, and that's going. I don't have the head block on right now, so this is going to wobble just a little bit. Stop. This one is fast forward. Yeah, stop. And this one is rewind. All right, looking good. Let's put the head block back on, and we'll put the chassis back in the case and try it with some tapes. Make note that when you reattach the head block, that this lever has to be on the outside of this tab here. I actually put a little black mark on there to help me remember that. Before I remount the chassis into the bottom of the case, I need to replace these foam strips that were underneath the rails there, and I will also clean this out. The chassis is back in the case. We have these 4 screws, one in each corner here, that hold the chassis into the bottom of the case. Next, we'll reinstall the battery tray. It has 3 screws in the bottom that go into these 3 spots here. Battery tray has been installed. Now we'll install the AC line cord tray and remount the socket right here using the screws that came out earlier. Now I'm ready to reinstall the top cover. I'm going to give it a little bit of a cleaning first though too. I won't screw the top down until I get a chance to test it, so let me put the batteries into the battery compartment. We'll test it on batteries first, and I've got a couple tapes. We'll see if there's anything on them, if this thing can sing.
In a minute we'll have a word with our Victor. Victor.
Well, it's sort of working. The reels were kind of sticky though when I had the top cover on, but it's playing fine with the cover off, so we gotta figure out what's going on there.
Bobby Fischer, get ready. The word from our challenger and the mark of a true champion. Yes.
Seems to be working much better now. I think there were 2 issues going on. One was these little set screws. Oh, that's kind of loud. These little set screws need to be fastened tight. And also the tape, God knows how long this has been wound on the spool. It was kind of sticking to itself. But right now it seems to be working. This seems to be somebody's rock group that's practicing here. Turn it down a little bit. So let me put the top cover back on and make sure it's still working good and we can button it up. I'm not very happy with the fact that the take-up reel is not being very consistent. I don't think it's just sticky tape. I think that belt might be a little bit too loose. So I ordered a couple sizes smaller, and I'm going to put the 8.8 inch on first on this take-up reel side and see if that helps give it a little more traction. I am much happier with that. So what I wound up doing was taking this belt off and moving it over to this side. It's a little bit of a shorter belt and it's skinnier, and I suspect there was some interference happening with the wheels under here. And then I used the 8.5 inch belt on this side instead of the 9-inch belt, and that seems to be much better. It's got more traction. So we're listening to somebody's conversation here, probably from nearly 60 years ago.
Hi, Daddy.
That's pretty cool. So one thing I do want to try is a test recording. I found an old Radio Shack microphone of mine. We'll give that a try and see if this thing can also record, but not on top of this precious recording, of course. Alright, well, let's see if we can record with this old microphone of mine. Let's go record. Push this button down. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. A B C D E F G. Testing 1 2 3. We'll see how this came out, if it came out at all. Rewind it. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. A B C D E F G. Testing 1 2 3. And looky there. See how this came out. Looky there. It does record. Very nice. Well, this has been a fun project. The biggest challenge was figuring out the belt. You know, the site I went to look up the belts had specific sizes, and those sort of worked, but as we saw in the previous videos, this reel kind of kept slipping, and so I went back and ordered some smaller belts, and as I said before, I wound up using the 9-inch belt that was on this reel over here on for this reel, and then I wound up using an 8.5-inch belt instead of the 9-inch belt on this side. So your mileage may vary if you're restoring one of these. It's kind of hard to know how things stretch and age, but you know, bringing a almost 60-year-old tape recorder back to life has been a lot of fun. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. That always helps, much appreciated. And I look forward to another restoration of something here in the near future.